in charge. Live from our studios on Kairaba Avenue. Good evening, viewers, from wherever you're watching us from. It's good to be back to yet another exciting, interactive, educative youth dialogue. And I am your host, Jul Denjai, from wherever you're watching us from. It's good to be back. Last week we were here and we were talking about a very, very important topic. But this week also, like I promised you guys before closing last week, I promised you that we are going to talk about autism. But not just autism, we're also going to talk about harassment. As you know, harassment has been a policy by the Gambia government, especially the National Human Rights Policy 2021. They included key among their, the policy there, it's the issue of harassment. It has played a very important role. Globally, we've seen the impact of harassment, on people, on workers, and, how negative impact it really has, especially on our young girls. So basically, we're going to talk about harassment and everything about harassment. And I am glad that the University of the Gambia, it's not left behind as far as advocacy, ensuring that, the narrative is changed on harassment. As a result, the University of the Gambia Student Union organized a week-long sensitization or campaign around harassment to talk about it, to sensitize people, to end it, to ensure that they advocate for policies that are really going to ensure that we put an end to harassment. To help me discuss these and other topics, of course, I have with me, I am always gender by Ibrahim, Suma Dom Gana, but come on, yeah, allow me to actually focus on Fatima. I have with me Fatou B. Sanyang, who is a final year student, University of the Gambia, journalism, and also a communications officer. And also I have with me in the studios Ibrahim Asama, who is a gender equality advocate, meant for equality. If I'm talking about gender equality, I'm always excited because I feel like, there should be that balance. So you are here 50-50, it doesn't mean that under 50, under $50 in your boleko. No, it's beyond that, right? Yeah, it's beyond that. So welcome to the studio, Fatou.
Thank you, Julde.
How have you been?
I've been so good.
Alhamdulillah. Clock it. Ibrahim, thank you very much for honoring my invitation.
Thank you very much for having me, Jilda. I'm very happy to be here today.
Thank you. So like I said, the University of the Gambia, they are talking about the issue of harassment. I know that it is a national policy at the national level, but also I'm glad that the University of the Gambia is coming up with initiative to talk about the issue of harassment. Talk to us about this week-long campaign and what it's all about.
All right, thank you very much for that question. So the week-long sexual harassment campaign is a policy of the Gender and Health Minister under the executive arm of the University of the Gambia Students' Union, and it is brought as an initiative to start conversations around issues that we don't talk about a lot. Mm-hmm. The University of the Gambia, by virtue of the fact that it is a tertiary institution, and this may not be something of knowledge to many people that are watching the show, but by virtue of the fact that there's power dynamics between lecturers and students, but even among students, because you're bringing together students that are coming from different walks of life, that have different values instilled in them, students that are even trying to understand themselves. So there's a lot of harassment that happens, whether it's non-verbal, verbal, physical, but the University of the Gambia over the years has not had it as a culture to talk about this thing. So that is why the Gender and Health Ministry brought this initiative to basically raise awareness around harassment, educate people on what it means, but also pushing very hard to ensure that the University of the Gambia passes a sexual harassment policy to ensure that we have a comprehensive framework that is going to address issues around sexual harassment at the University of the Gambia.
Thank you very much. So far too, the sexual harassment thing has been a conversation that has been ongoing for the longest time. How has the university students received the initiatives like this?
Thank you so much for that question. So sexual harassment is something that happens is everyday life, like women everywhere are harassed, and these things are not actually talked about. So at the University of the Gambia, we feel that it is important that we raise awareness about these things, because sometimes women are harassed and they don't get to talk about it because they feel there is no need to report it, or they fear being stigmatized. So at the University of the Gambia, this is actually one of the phase that we want to raise awareness about sexual harassment, let students know what sexual harassment is, what they're supposed to do when they're being harassed, and be ambassadors that can campaign against sexual harassment in their communities.
So how has it been received by those students at the university?
So actually we have done interview with students to know their understanding on what sexual harassment is.
Okay.
Let them become aware, like the policy that he's saying. Let them be aware that there is already a policy at the governing council that is about sexual harassment, so to ensure that students are protected and what they're supposed to do when they find themselves in these situations. So that has been the effort so far.
So how has been the reaction of the students there, Ibrahim?
So as Fatu rightly mentioned, we've only had interviews just to gauge the level of understanding. Where are we as a community, as a university community, when it comes to understanding what harassment is? And I think they've been very open to having these conversations with us. They're very open to being educated. They're very open to talking about sexual harassment. So I would say it is received quite well at the university community.
So, okay, now the issue of harassment, the University of the Gambia, how has the governing body of the university, how has they received this, and also how prevalent is it? And this policy, once it is in place, how is it going to change the status quo?
All right, thank you very much. So I'll start with the question around prevalence. It's very difficult to give a number, because like many institutions in the Gambia, I don't think we do a lot of research, a lot of surveys around harassment. But I know, as a student of the University of the Gambia, that I know a couple of my friends and colleagues that have gone through harassment, whether it's peer-to-peer harassment. So it is happening, but because we don't talk about it enough, it's very difficult to say this is the rate at which it is occurring or give an exact number as far as students that have been harassed either by teachers or students harassing teachers, or students, peer-to-peer harassment. And in terms of what management is doing, I think management is doing a fair effort when it comes to passing a policy. Like I said, that would be a comprehensive framework that not just spells out what harassment is, but also ensures that there are institutions that are established within the University of the Gambia to adequately and efficiently deal with it. But I think, again, I think because the sexual harassment policy has been at the Governing Council since the 19th Executive Council when it was first initiated, and this is the 23rd Executive Council. So that's about 4 years ago. So I think efforts can really be accelerated, and management can do better when it comes to pushing the policy to ensure that we have it in place.
So Fatu, you are a final year university student. Talk to us about some of the challenges that students are facing currently at the university.
So, since if you are harassed sometimes, you don't know what to do. Because most of the time, we the women, we are the victims of this sexual harassment. Sometimes you can say it verbally. Sometimes you can just harass someone physically. So I feel like a lot of people or a lot of students at the university level go through it, but probably they don't know who to go to, where to go to, or what to do about it. Though we have a counseling center at the University of the Gambia where students can go and openly talk about issues that are affecting them or talk about being harassed. But so far, most of the time they talk to their friends about it, rather than going to the rightful, because they feel more comfortable talking to them about it, because if X and X and X hear about it, what will be the repercussion? That is one thing people are scared of. Like for instance, if you're someone that is very famous and you are actually being harassed, imagine that thing going to the public and then nothing has been done. It's going to taint your image in the universe, and that probably has been the experience at the university.
Wow, that's really unfortunate. But I'm glad that issues like this and initiatives like this have been rolled out at the university level. So based on your experience, how do you think our cultural norms, societal values and all of that contribute towards normalizing harassment to some extent?
Thank you very much. Like, the university is a community within a country.
True.
And the culture that we have, of course, is influenced by what happens at national level. As a country, we have a culture of victim blaming. We have a culture of asking what was she wearing or what was he wearing when the harassment happened. Was she asking for it? And I mean, when you have these norms as a society, it's very normal that children grow up internalizing them. And unfortunately, these cultures make it into work institutions, and the University of the Gambia, despite the fact that it is a learning institution, is no exception where these cultures manifest itself. So I would say you know, the culture around victim blaming, the stigma that is attached to people that have come forward to say they've been harassed has really made people coming forward to talk about it difficult. Yeah, and it's manifesting itself within the University of the Gambia because nobody wants to be a victim of shame, a victim of ridicule. Yes, or people saying that you basically, you were asking for it, but were you addressing and not taking you seriously. Nobody wants that. So I think that is fueling silence, and it's basically creating a conducive environment for the perpetrators to continue doing what they do.
So in that case, as someone who is an advocate for gender equality, how do you think that men can contribute in ending this menace that we are really faced with nationally, not just at the university level? I know that university plays a key role because from the university, higher education, tertiary and higher education institution, then these are the same people that are expected to go to the job market. These are the same people that are expected to go to the various offices, go in the informal sector and contribute. So not understanding these things or the impact of these things will go a long way to ensure that, you know, to some extent it affects them, because it is a trauma that you go with for the rest of your life if you are not really, if you don't meet the right people that can guide you through it.
Yes, that's a question I get a lot by virtue of the work that I do. My work as a gender advocate, Men for Equality, really is about working with men and boys. So, you know, when I do these kind of interviews, I get the question of what can men do? I get it a lot, but it's a question that I'm happy to address all the time. I think there's a lot that men can do as perpetrators of violence. One, we can hold each other accountable as men, because a lot of the time there's this myth, I would, for want of a better word, that's what I'd call it, a myth, but there's this concept of bro code within, you know, amongst men, where we feel like we always have to have each other's back when it comes to violence against women, which harassment is a part of. So how do we break that bro code and how do we transform it into men holding each other accountable, wherein if I am sitting and a girl walks by and you make a comment, I'm able to tell you to not say that comment again, you know. But it all comes with also providing men with a lot of capacity, a lot of support, because I've also realized in the many years of work that I've done with men that a lot of them also are doing these things from the position of ignorance. They're not educated on consent. Unlike girls, fathers don't sit to have conversations with boys around consent, around harassment, etc. So that is what we've been doing, supporting as an organ. When I say we, I mean Men for Equality. We've been teaching boys around consent. We've been normalizing, you know, conversations with boys around sexual harassment. How do we stop? What can we do to stop? How do we hold each other accountable? How do we dismantle the bro code? How do we dismantle stereotypes that continue to shield us, that continue to support us in the perpetuation of the different forms of violence, which harassment is a part of against women?
Okay. Fatu, as a student journalist, how do you think the University of the Gambia journalism students can help in creating or raising awareness about sexual harassment at the university level?
Yes, so one thing about the media is one of the powerful weapons that we can use to change the world.
True.
And right now, we decide what the world sees, what the world needs to listen to, and what the world hears. So as student journalists, I think it is important that we report on such cases. We don't just go to the court, report it. Let us meet victims and talk to them. Let's have real conversations with victims, even though they might want to go to undercover, which I understand. But let's talk to them. Let them share their traumas with us. Let us talk to men, our fathers, on how this is affecting our women. That it is not normal for you to say it's a woman. Let's just not talk about it. They're women. We should not, you know, we are bound to do. These are things that are affecting us in our society. So we should use our platforms as journalists, our media, social media platforms, our voices, and be the voice of victims of sexual harassment. Let us report on these cases. Let us talk to society. Let us raise awareness. Since everyone nowadays is acquainted with technology, technology is very powerful. So we can use the media to sensitize the people on what sexual harassment is, its impact, and what needs to be done.
And you raise a very important point, which is sexual harassment and social media. Now, it's not only about the physical one, the physical touch, but also even online.
It's happening.
People have been harassed. It's really rampant there, you know, and people are not really paying attention to this. But it's worse than that. When people have been harassed online, girls are subjected to do a lot of things online, you know, but it's unfortunate that a lot of people do not consider that harassment.
Right.
So what do you think can be done? Because this social media thing, man, I feel like people are facing more harassment on social media. Yeah, exactly.
You just out of the blue text someone an image that is so not decent.
Right.
All those are forms of harassment, and there's a lot that needs to be done. Let the country itself put in place policies that punishes perpetrators that are found wanting.
True.
You don't just harass someone. This is something that can traumatize someone for the rest of their lives. Let us have laws that punish perpetrators instead of setting them, leaving them to go scot-free.
Right.
Because if you're being silent about it, you're protecting the perpetrator instead of protecting the victims. So I believe victims should speak up.
So in that case, where do we start from as a gender advocate? Where do we start? Because I feel like this problem is within the grassroots. It starts from the grassroots level, you know, a boy and a girl playing, and then all of a sudden, you know, the mom or the dad start blaming the girl child rather than focusing on the boy child, or even asking what really happened. They don't even bother to know what really transpired between the boy and the girl. All they know that they will scold the girl before you know it. It starts from there. So as a result, this girl child will just grow up with the fear of, okay, I can't report this or I can't talk about this. It's really serious.
Right. Yes. I think where we start is a question I ask myself a lot as a gender advocate, because I think the problem is so multi-layered.
It is.
Parents have a stake, young people have a stake, children have a stake. So and sometimes it feels like there's not a single starting point. It feels like efforts have to be done simultaneously.
Right.
But I think, you know, normalizing the conversation is a starting point, because I feel like, you know, a lot of the times we like to blame parents and how they've raised their kids, but even sometimes those same parents don't know better. So how do we educate those parents?
Right.
And we basically teach them better ways to parent. How do we teach parents to, first of all, stop the, you know, we've all done the papaya thingy when we're young.
Yes.
So
exactly.
how do we train or hold conversations with parents to ensure that they create, I wouldn't say a hostile environment, but an environment where such kind of activities are unwelcomed or are frowned upon. So of course, you know, conversations need to be held with parents around that.
Right.
But also we can't forget the need to hold conversations with our adolescent, and by adolescent I'm not just saying the girls, but also the boys who are still trying to understand themselves, who are largely influenced by the internet, by the things that they've seen. Because, you know, you've made mention of how even most of the times when harassment happens with children, we always blame the girl child, you know, which is true to a very large extent. But also I like to ask myself the question of, where did the boy see what he's doing to the girl? That's a question we don't ask.
We don't really ask.
Yes. Where did he see it? Why is he doing that to the girl? So, you know, we do, where did he see that? So those are questions, you know, we need to ask. So for me, it's having the conversations with parents.
Right.
Having the conversation with our, you know, young boys and young girls who are growing up, who are still trying to understand who they are, who are still trying to understand their desires as teens, as, you know, adolescents, but also ensuring that there are comprehensive policies in institutions at national level that make sure that, you know, give sexual harassment the severity that it deserves, because it is the consequences are far-reaching. It is a very serious issue. So let's have policies that give it the attention, the seriousness, and the severity that it demands.
Right. So this particular campaign, the week-long campaign, is it just targeting university students?
It's not actually targeting the university student, because we're also planning to have a community radio show.
Okay.
Yeah, we're planning to have a community radio show aside from the university students, so that we can talk to people outside, because radio also is a form of communication.
True.
People listen to radio shows. So if we target university students, it's important we go outside the community and talk to these people about what sexual harassment is. And yeah, the radio talk show is one of
the platforms that you intend to use or using to ensure you create awareness. Honestly, I am really happy about this initiative, because I feel like the university is one platform that you can have this initiatives like this. But do you guys have any plans to further expand this, like to reach other schools you know, aside from the university or the schools, even primary level? Because I feel like I mentioned earlier, in order to address this problem, we have to start from the grassroots. Those that are in, you know, primary and, you know, junior secondary levels, to understand what harassment and the impact, the negative impact of harassment, you know, in society.
Yes.
Okay, you first, then him.
Yes, that is actually doable, because university, our advocacy does not always stop in the classroom. All the schools in the university do go out for community outreach.
Okay.
And the university at large go for Students' Week. So when we go for these activities, we ensure we go to the communities, go to school, pick a particular topic to talk to the students or the community about that particular topic. So we can bring a harassment into these kind of conversations.
Right.
So we can talk to students at an early age on what sexual harassment is,
Yes.
talk to community members what this is and how it is affecting our society.
Okay. All right.
Yes, so the current Minister for Gender at the University of the Gambia Students' Union is a very passionate gender advocate who's also very passionate about eradicating sexual and gender-based violence, all forms of it.
Okay.
So while this week focuses on the University of the Gambia, I think part of the reasons we moved from just radio programs to bring it on TV is to ensure that it doesn't just benefit students of the University of the Gambia, but young people in the country, in the diaspora, anywhere in the world can basically get a touch of what is happening and what we're doing.
Right.
And whether with respect to the plans of extending it to, you know, other secondary schools and primary schools, I'm sure if time permits and resources are available, because I'm sure, as I'm sure you would know, community outreaches and school outreaches require a lot of resources. So if the minister, I'm sure, has adequate resources, of course, she is more than happy to extend the advocacy to the schools you've highlighted. But I guess with the limited amount of resources, we have to limit it at the university for now, but make use of, you know, platforms like the TV and radio to ensure that the reach is as far as we can.
So how about the policy now? When are we expecting? I know you are at the interview stage and all of that, but when are we going to expect a fully ready policy on sexual harassment for the university students?
I think, do you want me to answer? I think I should answer that,
Right.
yes. So the policy has been before the Governing Council for a while. So there's the bureaucracies that are involved with passing policies at the University of the Gambia.
Okay.
And of course, it goes through procedure. I'm not sure I'll get into explaining all of that, but all I know is that we've really been pushing. And, you know, I think this is, since this is the TV, I'd use the platform to just call on the University of the Gambia's management to support the efforts of the University of the Gambia Students' Union to push for the implementation or the establishment of the for the policy to be passed, essentially. Because the policy has been there, you know, we've been pushing, I mean the Students' Union has been pushing since the 19th Executive Council, because we feel that, like you said, policy would force the University of the Gambia to establish strategies, institutions, to have targeted training for students to build the capacity of staff that are supposed to, you know, be the people that you go to when you're harassed to complain, because even that is a part that we overlook a lot.
Right.
When somebody goes through sexual harassment, they're traumatized, even if it's temporarily. So the person that they're going to report it has to have the capacity to deal with them at the state that they're coming, to support them. So I think the policy will force management to establish the necessary disciplinary bodies, to establish the necessary support systems for the students of the University of the Gambia, but really to explain to the students what harassment, because there are different forms and there's so many. And like you guys were talking about, even technology facilities, what we've seen as harassment has evolved over the years, so there's a need for, you know, there to be corresponding penalties with the evolving nature of sexual and gender-based violence.
Okay. So speaking of sexual and gender-based violence, today there has been a forum on the First Ladies Forum to end, you know, zero tolerance on sexual and gender-based violence, and I'm sure that it's going to yield dividend as far as sexual and gender-based violence is concerned in the Gambia here. You know, we've really made progress as far as sexual and gender-based violence is concerned in the Gambia, but we have a long way to go.
Yes.
Really, because the policy tools alone are not enough. They're not enough. You know, implementation has always been a problem. And I'm a keen advocate of, okay, I like the fact that we're coming up with all these policies, these programs and legislative tools. But at the end of the day, I think the most important aspect of it is the implementation bit of it. So how is the implementation phase going to be?
Implementation phase
Of the policy. How is it going to be, and how are complaints going to be made and all of that?
So if the policy is being passed, we're actually going to have, like he said, trained personnel or the staff that are going to deal with these kind of people. So maybe we can have something like if you're applying for the career and center, if you're going to the career and center, when you're applying online, you apply and fill in your details.
Okay.
Then you go for an interview where it's just going to be you and the person that you're talking to.
Right.
And whatever you're going to talk is going to remain between you two. This is where we bring in like you two sign in, I don't know how to call it, is it MOU or confidentiality? Confidentiality, where everything you talk about remains confidential, and the steps that are that will be taken after that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So finally, I know time it's not on our side, and we have another segment coming. But finally, from you, as a gender advocate, how do you see overall gender equality in the Gambia? And what can be done? We have a long way to go, right?
And that's, people always say, oh, we've come a long way, we've made so much progress. But I always say, let's not undermine the amount of work that still needs to be done. The statistics are quite clear.
No.
There are still so many cases around harassment, around rape. But let's put that aside. And since we're talking about, broader women empowerment and just look at even institutions, how many women do we have in parliament? How many women do we have in the executive?
3.
Yes. So, the figures are quite low. Women still remain underrepresented.
Right.
And that shows the amount of work that still needs to be done. The amount, and it's not just policy, because like you've said, but it is behavioral mindset shifting that has to happen towards women empowerment,
right?
Because that's the only way we can get more women in elected positions. And of course, policies help with the nominated bit, but the elected positions, and then violence against women
and girls.
It's also a behavioral thing. So there's a lot that needs to be done in shifting mindsets, normalizing the conversation, and building that support.
Yeah, normalizing the conversation more needs to happen.
Yeah,
because it's still a taboo to talk about sexual and gender-based violence. I don't know how we are going to end this.
Because the cultures that we come from, they threaten us when we try to talk about topics like that. We're
exactly.
like, and that is really not helping us.
It's not.
It's not. So that is where they need to start. The campaign also, because
the advocates, you really have a lot of work to do. Media, you have a lot of work to do. Policy makers, we have a lot of work to do. But I'm glad conversations like this are coming up. Like you all say, it all starts here. Maybe someone's out there, it's watching, and then we'll have a change of mindset and all of that. Someone out there has been harassed, and then they will know how to go about it. Because the harassment happens when you don't like it. Galalma in a certain place and I feel offended, I don't like it. You constitute harassment. You are harassing me. So if I tell you to stop, means stop. You have to stop. Yeah, so thank you very much for coming, Ibrahim. I hope to have you again because the conversation should really continue. We need conversations like this. And Fatu, hope to see you in the field very soon. Finally, a journalism student. Yeah, hope to see you. Thank you very much for coming. Viewers, this is all we have for the first segment. We will take a short break, and when we return, we will talk about autism. As you know, this whole month is going to focus on autism, raising awareness, and ensure that we put an end to it. We can't end autism really, but we can at least advocate and then minimize it. We'll be right back. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, this is QTV Youth Dialogue coming to you from our studios on Kairaba Avenue, and I am Jewel Denjai. From that segment with the University of the Gambia students on harassment, we are now going to shift our attention to autism. As you know, April 2nd is designated as World Autism Day, but aside from that also, April is a month where people raise awareness about autism, educate people, but also encourage governments, civil society organization to come up with policies and initiative that really ensures that autism, there is that awareness, but also ensure that people accept people with autism, living with autism, because, you know, disability, it's not inability. And I think it's very important. But in our part of the world, when you have autism, it's your, you know, they describe you with all sorts of names and all of that. So, and in the Gambia here, Gambian level, there is an organization that is doing so well as far as creating awareness and ensuring that there is that inclusion, you know, with people living with autism is concerned in the Gambia, and they are no other than the Gambia Autism and Support and Advocacy Network, GASAN. And I have with me Maimuna P. Mendy, who is a communication officer, and I have Maha M. So, who is a volunteer of the organization. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening, Julia.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And this year's World Autism Day is focusing on the issue of, you know, autism and humanity. Every life has value. Talk to us about this year's World Autism theme.
Okay, thank you so much, Julde, and thank you so much for having us once again. It's always a pleasure for us to come here.
Right.
And like you just started with, every life matters, and therefore autism is not a disease. It is just a way in which people think differently, a neurodevelopmental disorder. That's why this year's theme is very important, autism and humanity.
Right.
This is just telling you that people are supposed to be accepted, people are supposed to be empowered, and they're also supposed to be supported. And this is why we said, okay, in this team we are going to ensure we do a lot of things, and basically the team is just focusing on ensuring that those that are autistic are empowered, those that are autistic are supported, and those that are autistic are also accepted in society, because away from beyond awareness is acceptance that we are supposed to do.
Right.
And when we do this, we can be able to achieve the team.
True. So, Maimuna, as the communications officer of GASAN, how does this year's theme resonate with your organization, and how do you intend to create the much needed awareness around the team?
Thank you very much. Just as Maha mentioned,
Right.
GASAN is here to create an inclusive society for the autistic individual, and how can we create that acceptance. And with this year's theme being humanity and autism, every life has value.
Right.
Even though in the Gambia here, when we speak about autism, we see so many misconceptions saying that the mom was not yaay bi nekuton yaay bu baax, xale bi jine moko dal. There is a lot of misconceptions.
Exactly.
So GASAN come into play during this month of April, not only this month of April, but throughout our advocacy, is raising awareness. That is why we are planning to have a direct engagement with community members,
Right.
because we all come from communities, and there is always misconception because there is no understanding, or the community members do not have that knowledge about autism.
True.
So what we intend to do is to go directly have a community engagement, speak to community members, let them know that autism is not a disease, autism is not a spiritual thing, but it's a different way that people see the world differently.
Right.
Some have communications issues, some have interaction issues, some have behavior change. But when the community accept them, see them as okay, see them as normal, allow them to thrive freely, they can surely reach to their full potential. So community engagement is one key, because we believe once the community narrative or perspective has changed around autism, every autistic child will be able to thrive in the community freely.
True. So, Maha, in that case, for someone who is watching for the first time and hear this term, autism, what does autism mean, and how can someone detect that this person is autistic?
Yeah, thank you so much. So autism basically, based on different definitions, they will tell you that it's a neurodevelopmental disorder. And then this focuses on people thinking differently about how the world is, and also individuals, when it comes to communication, they lack communication skills, and some of these communication skills are individuals that are supposed to speak at a particular duration are not able to speak at that particular time. That is in the communication side. Some of them will not speak at all. And we also have individuals that have issues with social interaction. And this social interaction is where certain individuals cannot have this eye contact that we are talking, that we are having right now. Others, you see young individuals that cannot even interact with their friends and so on. So these kind of individuals, if you see them and you know there's a time that they are supposed to interact and they're not interacting as young people, it is very important that for you to detect or to at least have the belief that this person person might be autistic, but it can only be proven after being diagnosed. But these are most of the symptoms that we see. That is social interaction, they will lack it, communication skills, they will lack it, and also most of the time they bring in repetitive behaviors like flopping hands and so on. So these are most of the signs that they come forward with people with autism. So these are the main symptoms.
But what really causes this? Because Maimuna, you did mention about the myth around autism. Okay, today someone is even taking bath, you're pregnant and you're taking shower at night, really telling you, so don't be didn't go change it, didn't believe and all of that. You know, all the myth around, you know, autism. What really causes this in a scientific point of view?
So, the research has not yet proved what's the real cause of autism.
Okay.
Because there is no scientific proof what the real cause of autism is really. But sometimes it can be genetic, but it's not scientific proof on yet, the cause of autism.
Okay.
But there is just a it's just people seeing the world differently.
Right.
Maybe the way you see the world and the way I see the world might be different. But all it needs is just inclusive society, accepting and embracing them in our community.
You did mention a very important word, that is genetic.
Yes.
And this country is one country that do not really go to, before you get married to someone, you don't go to know the genotype of your partner and all of that. And that really have a long way to go towards ensuring that you have a healthy family. You know, but the issue of genotype in this country, I think we will have to bring in the Ministry of Health. You know, there needs to be a lot of sensitization because, man, I believe that, I'm a layman, but I believe that all these disorders that are happening is because of genotype issues.
Very right. Like she just said, in the scientific term, they will tell you that this autism is idiopathic, meaning the cause is not known. But it is mostly related to environmental factors and genetic factors. Now, in the environmental factors is maybe the use of toxins or so on, inhaling things that are bad during pregnancy and so on. These also believed that it can cause autism. So in the genetic side, just like most of these other conditions today, like diabetes, hypertension, most of the time when individuals within their family lineage, you will see that if this one is diabetic, another one can also be diabetic. So it is also believed that when someone is autistic, the person can have a child who's autistic, or the families go ahead and then having autism throughout. But with regards to the genotype that you're talking about, even the sickle cell today, you get to realize that it is important for us to know our status. Because if you do not know your status before getting married to individuals, there are certain conditions that you can easily have. And though we are talking about autism, but since you bring it forward, it's important that we encourage the society. We know that sometimes when you are into marriage or you want to get married, sometimes you're blinded, but it's important that you go in and know your status before going ahead.
It's very important, So Gazan have been an organization in the Gambia that has been playing a key role, a pivotal role as far as creating awareness is concerned. What initiatives have you been rolling out?
So since the establishment of Gazan in 2024, that was when we registered, but we started operation in 2025. So what are some of the activities that we have done? We have done quite a lot of activities that are dealing directly with the communities. The first activity that we did, which we even came to QTV and have an engagement with you, I can fully remember the question Jennifer posed me is, when organizations are newly established and they're advocating for something, when they start, they're always pam, within 1 year and they close.
Sustainability, right?
Yeah, sustainability. But I am here, I told her that Gazan is here to stay, and Gazan is here to change the narrative and also creating that inclusive society. Our first activity was the April project, which was the Autism Awareness Month, where we had a walk from the Alliance Franco to the Youth Monument, where we had a First Lady and also some honorable members who graced the occasions. We also don't just stop there. We also try to see how we can include sport in our activities. That is having the first run autism the first run for autism, where we had sport from Westfield. We had athletes that runs from Westfield, in joining their voices, in joining in the call for an inclusive and an acceptant society now. From Westfield to Banjul, then from there we had a march past and had a ceremony, creating that awareness about autism. But I know most people would say, what are you guys doing with regards of engaging family members? You are advocating for these people. What of the families?
Family members,
So in December, we decided to organize a family fund day, where we have family members who are living with autistic came out with their children. Because most of the time, these children are always at home.
Yeah, indoors.
Indoors.
Most of the time. They're always isolated. Man fana lolu mo de same condition be that they was.
So sung amé gan sa dañu tej len xalé bi ci biir ak yoyu nonu wala xalé bi du dé mëna foy ak. So we came up with this idea of calling it a family fun day. Have parents come on board, have children come on board. So during that family fun day, what we did is bring these children together. They draw in whatsoever is in their mind, let them draw it, paint whatsoever in their mind, and also interact together. And we had a session with the parents. Let them understand what autism is and how they will be able to support their children, and allow them to, like, how do you support your child? And you learn from each other. Take the best practices that will help you. So that was one of the most impactful activity, because we are dealing with directly with the people that we active. And the funniest thing is, you hear parents says that hardly that really shows,
because you don't encourage your child to go out.
So that really shows the impact of engaging the family in the advocacy aspect, and also raising their awareness, because you only support your child once you know what is wrong with the child. Even though we do not have in terms of medical diagnosis, we do not have specialized doctors in autism in the Gambia here. But in partnership with Sunyureu, we were able to support few parents that visited the Edward Francis Small Hospital to see the doctor, to seek medication in better ways to support their children.
Can it be prevented?
Autism? No.
If you don't know the cause, you can't prevent it.
Like the only way, one of the ways that one can prevent it is, since it is believed to be environmental factors, for you to avoid anything that is toxic during pregnancy. That is one of the things, because if you talk about environmental factors, in the Gambia, we rarely have ladies that smoke, but it happens.
Second-hand smoking
is
worse than
and asbestos, toxins, any kind of toxins, inhaling them, you have to try to avoid them, because it is believed to be associated with environmental factors. Maybe that is the only way that we can say it for now, because there's no research that have indicated the cause to an extent, telling you what you can do to stop it. Maybe that's the only way we can say for now.
So what can parents do? Okay, you want
maybe even if we are not preventing it, but early intervention, seeking medical support,
will go a long way
to know what is wrong with your child and be able to support your child at the earliest. I know, like, Gambia is so much in a society stigma where we always point fingers at persons with disabilities, seeing them as people that are less important in the community. But once you know what is wrong with your child and try to seek support at early age, your child will reach the confidence. But autistic children are so much intelligent.
They are smart.
So they are so much smart to the extent that before you digest something, they're already a step ahead of you.
Right. So and they're so observant,
They're
observant.
We have so many great people that are doing well outside. Why not in the Gambia? All we need is a mindset of us changing that misconception that we put around autism.
So how can parents help their kids that are autistic?
Yeah, so one of the ways, first is seeing the symptoms that your child is autistic based on what we are talking about. And we'll be happy to inform you that based on our last webinar with Sunyureu, we were informed that there is a neurologist who is a pediatric neurologist currently at EFSTH. So that means we need more, but having him around is something, that is a plus. And I believe that EFSTH being one of the biggest hospitals in this country, it is important that parents try to reach out. And before we leave, Mai would give a number which they would call. And when they call, Mai can liaise them with the owner of Sunyureu. And then from there, they can liaise with that man. And from there, if they want to know anything about their children, it's important for them to go ahead. Because it's very wrong also for you to go to someone who don't know. To diagnose you. That's why us as Gasan, we don't diagnose people. We just tell them the symptoms And if they need support, then we see how best to support them.
Support
That is
them.
through reaching out to individuals that specialize in the mental health. And now we have someone who specializes on pediatric neurology. So it's very important that we help them through that individual.
Absolutely.
So I just to add up to what he was saying,
Yeah.
regards of, I guess our partnership with Sunyureu is very much vital
It
because
is.
they are medical doctors that came together. So during was it on Monday we had a webinar where we discussed about autism, family members join, and also other people that are interested to know more about autism join. So during that webinar we received the best news that once we have parents that are interested to go to the hospital to check up to know what is wrong there with their children, they can just leave, because Gazan is not medical doctors that should diagnose, that can diagnose. But
I
we
feel
are
like
needy.
you should localize this Nankowa in national language, because it's very important.
It's important.
Let's localize this one, this part of it, because it's important. Ko hamne dal da nga am gis sa doom bi mo am certain symptoms yo hamne da nga suspect ne dafa autistic. There is a place now you can take your child to. Okay.
So lunno wa si kalama angale rek
Right.
mo nek Gazan mbootaay boo xamante wi ñun dundee diagnose
Waaw.
na ñu ngi am partnership ak mbootaay bu ndee ooyee Sunyureu Medical Mission. So during suñu webinar bi on Monday foo xamante ñun doon waxtaane autism family members si parents ñoo xamante ne ñu ngi dëkka xale si Gambia bi, even abroad some people join ñu waxtaane affaire autism. So one of the best news that we received is am nañ nit koo xamante ne mu ngi si Gambia fii boo xamante ne mun na moo am waxtaan ak yaay bi pour jàppale yaay bi pour mu xam lan moo dal sa doom. So balaa programme di jeex na dinaa bàyyi suma number wala mun naa xool lii rek.
Exactly, yeah.
255 6495 255
You don't have Qcell. Maymuna dina la génne si studio bi léegi.
Qcell moom am nañ ko.
Waaw, Qcell line. Right.
So it's 255 6495. So maha dina joxe Qcell line bi.
Okay.
So once nga call si number bi nga explainal ñun sun, then ñun dina la liaise ak Miss Victoria moo nekk the founder of Sunyureu.
Wow.
Then moom dina make arrangement with the medical doctor ku nekk Edward Francis Small pour nga ñu seet naka ngay mën a gisante ko pour nga xam lan moo jot sa doom, parce que soo xamutee lu jot sa xale doo ko mën a dimbale na once nga xam lu ko jot rek you will be able to support the child at the earliest
Exactly.
stage.
Te parents yu bari dañ dee feel shy, maanaam dañoo rus nit ñi pour nit ñi xam ne ok kii dafa am doom boo xam ne dafa autistic. Naka lañ dee wax autism si olof sax. Autistic in a dañ pour bu nekk lañ ko dee wax.
dañoo explainer comme symptômes yi rek.
Symptoms yi, waaw.
Because comme symptômes yi comme niñ ko doon waxee rek mooy comme tey nga am xale boo xam ne mu ngi war a toog fax ak ay moromam. wante moom du mun a toog sax fax ak moromam. tey bu dee dafa war a waxtaan ak yow sax pour mu xool la si bët sax munu koo def. kooku noonu soo ko gisee mun loo wax 100% am na autisme. wante mun ngaa am yaakaar bi ne kii autisme la am xale boo xam ne comme
mu ngi
time mu war a wax
waxut
nga
wala
su nekkee dox bi boobu dina soreek autisme am na leneen lu ñuy wax cerebral palsy. loolu dafay moo tax comme foofu tam dañ ko war a leeral. nekkul ne comme xale bi mënut a dox wala mënut a toog nga ne kii dafa am autisme. boobu tamit soo demee si pédiatrique neurologiste bi mun na laa wax lu bëri. wane comme tey fi ñuy waxee mooy ki nga xam dafa war a wax waxtu bu mu war a wax waxut ko time boobu noonu ko mun ngaa suspect dafa am autisme. so ñooñu noonu lañ mën a wax ne comme ñii am nañ autisme. so loolu is very very important pour yaay bi mu xam ko. so lu may doon wax rek mooy su gaa yi amee façon yii nii na gaa yi try gaa yi dem lopitaan bu mag bi mooy EFSTH.
Edward Francis Small Banjul bu nekk Banjul.
waaw su gaa yi demee foofu rek dinañ gis ku gaa yi war a waxal comme que may bàyyi na fi nomba am so ñu bàyyi fi beneen nomba mooy comme Qcell nomba bi 50200099 50200099 nomba bi su ko gaa yi koolee tamit nañ leen mën a direct jox leen nombre docteur bu gaa yi war a gis gaa yi dem gaa yi gis docteur bi pour ñu mun a xam ndax seen doom am na ko wala amul ko waaw
am na solo te April bi month boo xam ne la dañ ko jagleel World Autism pour ñu raise awareness maanaam wax ñi luy autism and all of that danga fi clarify lu am solo because ñu bëri suma maas yëpp dañ fogoon ne xale su waree toogul wala war a doxut rek you have autism but I'm glad ne xam nga lii it's not part of autism te misconceptions yi nii yëpp dafa bëri when it comes to autism as such ñoon ñeneen ñi sax instead of ñu dem lopitaan ñu jàppale la and all of that dañoo restore to this black magic ñuy dem si sëriñ and all of that before you know it xale bi is traumatized.
dañu lay wax ne sa doom bi jine moo ko jàppa ñeneen ñi dañ la wax sa sànni ko si boori géej gi dina dem ak yooyu yëpp
sànni ko fële wala sànni ko si guddi wala doppal dara si kaw am you know I was like how does any won't do that to a child.
Is towards the misconception.
Exactly.
So more am waxtaan façon yi is very much important. Pour nit yi ñu xam lan moo xew ak naka la ñoo defee pour jàppale xale yi. So waxtaan su amee understanding su amee misconception bi yëpp dina change. So more I feel like community engagement bu mu war a am si monde bi is very much important.
Kañ la
on the 18th na Banjul leen ko amee.
Banjul.
Wow.
Okay, on the 18th of this month.
Yeah, exactly.
Banjul.
So we have.
Ana do leen ko decentralize Banjul rek.
So no, we want to have one in Banjul and also have another one in KM. We're also thinking of having another one in North Bank.
Wow.
But even if, because awareness be end with April, but it continues.
It continues, yeah.
So even we are not able to go to the rural Gambia, see April B, we will extend our advocacy in going to North Bank, West Coast, CRR, and also URR. So the other thing is. Family members, we speak to family members, we discuss with them. A lot of challenges now. Small don't be monomako yobo school because our school bomako yobo. Because most of the time we have
wow, lulu tami challenge la de.
What's the name of the school?
This and hard of hearing school Bufineka.
Methodist. So we have Methodist. You do not expect an introvert autistic child to be in a midst of 20 or a midst of 50 children. And also we do not have teachers that are specialized in these areas to be able to support these children. So that is why we're thinking of having a sport game where we want to raise funds to be able to support family members. In that fund that we raise, we want to give it back to the family members by going to for therapy section to be able to support their children, because we do not have a government specialized school that support autistic children. We only have private one.
So you should advocate for that.
Yeah, we
advocate. Not government be allocate schools.
Yeah, it's really important because we have so many children that are out there that needs to be in schools to be able to reach out their full potential.
Thank you very much for coming. This is not the end. This is the entire month, and as such, we need to have conversations around this. If you invite, well, and you invited, then I definitely go for the community outreach one, inshallah. Our doors are always open. Thank you very much for coming. This is all we have time for. I'm afraid, we should have have a lot of time, 1 hour to talk about this, but next time is also there. Thank you for coming. Viewers, this is all we have time for. Do join us again next week for another edition of the Youth Dialogue. It's a bye for me.